If you put your hands on a woman and beat her up, you're a sick human being. If you are beating up your ex, your wife, your girlfriend, whoever, you're scum of the earth. To me, that's the worst. Because abusing somebody financially is a refund and an apology, and I won't do it again. That deserves criminal prosecution to the heaviest.
The connection between faith and facts or evidence in religion, I think, is a really interesting discussion to me.
It's interesting because I think the root of faith is trust. In the absence of facts, documents, tangible evidence, we rely on faith.
Would you be open to me moderating a live podcast between you and Wes or Andy?
I would love that.
Okay.
Let's do it.
This is an interview with Raees, the beard lawyer. This was a riveting discussion today. We talked about a lot of things, and one of the things we talk about is all the frauds that exist online. We talk about specific people that their company Ballerbusters exposes for being fraudulent. People like Wes Watson, Elliott, Cardone, and others. And I think we have a healthy debate or discussion around the idea that I'm not a big fan of people talking shit and spreading hate, but also what's the line between talking shit and finding justice? And Raees shares his perspective there. We also talk a little bit about spirituality, and we go deep on this one. So welcome to the Roller Coaster Podcast. Strap in. Raees, welcome to the Roller Coaster Podcast.
What's going on? Good to be here.
I appreciate you coming in. Raees is one of the founders of Ballerbusters, which, if you don't know what it is, you should know what it is. And we're going to talk about it today. So this is a social media page that exposes fraudulent behavior and the guru culture that exists out there, which is actually pretty sad, I think. So Raees, look, I'm not a huge fan of spreading hate and talking shit. But however, there's a big capital however in this statement. I do think that there's a chance that this could be the one noble cause for talking a little shit and spreading a little hate. And maybe you don't even see it that way at all, right? How do you think about this? The line between justice and talking shit?
It's a really good question. So my first perspective is always as a lawyer, because that's who I am. That's what I've been for 14 years. It's what I am professionally. I advise people. And one of my primary areas of practice is defamation. So I'm even more sensitive to falsity, publishing things that could damage someone's reputation. However, there's a place for advocacy for victims. And what I see Ballerbusters presenting itself as and sort of occupying the space of an advocacy group. Ballerbusters, when it first started, they started busting this fake watch guru. Okay, one of those fake watch gurus. And it blossomed from there. It wasn't actually intended to be what it is today, believe it or not. And at one point, Ballerbusters was getting refunds of $250,000 per week for victims. No cost, no commissions, no lawyer's fees, nothing. This is 2017, 2018. $250,000 a week. I don't even know that some attorney general's offices in the state do that. And that was the proving ground that, you know what, there's victims. And when you talk about stuff, the victims come out. I will now slide that skill back to the other way. You're absolutely right that just bashing people online doesn't sit right with me either, personally, right, as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's why if someone were to come to my office and say, look, whether it's a civil lawsuit, I've been defamed, I don't like this guy, I've been defrauded, show me the receipts. Let's talk about it. I also believe in forgiveness. I also believe people should get a second and third chance. If I'm advocating on behalf of an individual, though, that individual calls the shot as a professional, not me. So long as you have the receipts and this was done, from a law standpoint and a legal and a civil action standpoint is public record. Now, we all know how lawsuits go. Each side just has 50% of the story. Sometimes there's a third side of the story. But yeah, I understand people who say, well, look, what is this just bashing people online? But bashing people online, I don't think Ballerbusters ever in its history just throws tomatoes. I think it's by design to be. In fact, what you're seeing publicly is a very small sliver of the information they have.
Mm.
So it's actually a slow drip to say, we know this happened. So we are willing to tell you about it. And the DMs, hey, here's an audio recording. Here's an email. Here's a text of this person, what they did to me. And your head will explode when you see that.
Amazing. Here's the way that I want to unpack this. Okay. There's main culprits, right, that you guys tend to talk about and expose for this sort of behavior, right? And so what I want to do is I want to first address like who's the number one culprit. I think I know, but there's sort of like a tie for first, I think right now, specifically with what happened yesterday. So I want to understand like who's the number one culprit.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Who's the number one culprit in your mind? And then like person by person, I just want to go through as much information as you have like top of mind on these people, why you've chosen to highlight and expose these people. Fair?
Okay.
Can we agree that the two main current flavors of the day are Wes Watson and Andy Elliott?
That's a good summary.
Okay. Which one is like the number one culprit? Like which one is the one that to you just gives you the most disdain?
It's a pretty close tie. Like you said, it's a split second decision. I think what I have seen and heard about Wes is a very hard pill to swallow. Because it involves not just the e-commerce, fake stories, sell your product that I can't follow through on, which makes anyone who's legitimate look bad. There's also the personal relationship allegations, of abuse, physical abuse, assaults, that makes it that much tackier and a much bigger pill to swallow. So that to me, it's not the type of human being I would want to be associated with. And it's the type of human being that people should legitimately be warned about. And so I'll pause there.
How do you think Wes Watson has stayed out of jail?
Well, I don't know how he stayed out of jail. But what I do know is that victims have to be able to come forward, state their case on the criminal side. And just the way criminal prosecutions happen, right? Like what we're seeing with P. Diddy. There's an investigatory process. There's a process of building a case. And there's the actual criminal action that happens. Each step of the way, prosecutorial discretion happens. Hey, we don't think we have enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Totally separate from civil, right? Higher burden on the criminal side. So that has to happen for somebody to get prosecuted, even if it's for domestic violence, right? So arrests can be made, charges may be brought, they can be dropped, but victims often control at least the first domino that falls. So I don't know. It could be a question of time, but these things have to come to light before a prosecution can even happen.
Knowing you've practiced law for as long as you have and have been incredibly successful at doing what you do, is your forecast that Wes will end up in jail at some point?
I would be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if he doesn't. Now, I will say this. Some people learn. Some people learn. Some people can change. And
some people.
Some people. And listeners should know, right? It's easy for us to sit in a room and from the optics of things, draw conclusions about people. People do that to us. They've done it to you. They've done it to me. But it's the recurring pattern of things.
Yeah.
If you publicly apologize, that says a lot about who you are as a human being. When you retract, when you say, I've made mistakes, so long as you don't keep making them over and over, I think it says a lot about who you are. I don't know that we've seen that with him. Have we? I've seen what I would personally describe as crazy rants, like somebody who's ill. You know, and I don't say somebody who's ill to give them a free pass that it's mental illness. I don't mean that. I mean, he's in rages of whether it's the steroid rages or amphetamine rages. There's something going on there. We've all, it's go to his Instagram page. It's on video.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah. How do you so a lot of what you talk about, and we'll stay on the Wes Watson theme here for a little bit. A lot of what you expose on Ballerbusters is actual public filings, right? So how do you balance public filings, which is most would take that at face value as real evidence versus anecdotal?
It's a good question. So it's a particularly good question because as a lawyer, I know that just because something is publicly filed, like a complaint, a civil lawsuit, doesn't mean it's 100% correct. Civil lawsuits get filed on information and belief, allegations, accusations. Sometimes there are receipts, as we call it, attached. Maybe there's an image file, there's a contract, right? So-and-so had a contract with me and they breached it. Well, we can see that there is a contract. Whether it was breached or not, it's not something the public can often see.
Yeah.
So the public filings only show so much of it. There's an investigatory process behind that. So if you talk to somebody who's, for example, a plaintiff in a civil fraud case against e-commerce people, we're going to get a lot more from that conversation than what's in that public filing. So the public filings are helpful. Again, it's with Ballerbusters in particular, I think it's a consumer advocacy type of thing that, hey, this was just filed. Are you doing business with these guys? Do you have a similar story of what happened to you? If so, there's an ear for you. Come tell us.
Yeah. So those listening should go to this page just because you should check it out. And it's probably not something, in my opinion, you should consume all the time every day because it doesn't feel very good sometimes. But sometimes it's a lot of fun and you go down some silly rabbit holes, right? One of the emojis, actually the emoji you guys use the most is the clown face emoji, right? So look, I think there's why if you're already going to expose somebody, why take it to that level? Is it because these are people that like to push back and fight? And so you just go, all right, then we'll just really amp this thing up and embarrass you versus you could just keep it very sort of civil and expose them, but not use the clowns and the voice audio mouse sounding stuff, right?
You like that one? No, I think...
Which, by the way, I think is funny, but I'm just curious.
There is an entertainment value of that channel.
Yeah.
There is. My personal Instagram page is a little different. It's more about me personally and it's different.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, there's entertainment value there.
Yeah.
However, it's not tabloid entertainment because it's based on facts. Now, clowning somebody hard versus just reporting facts. If you saw or heard, and we can get into the brass tacks of the next guy soon, but if you saw or heard what people are actually coming forth with, it would just blow your mind. And it's those victims' stories to tell.
Yeah.
It's not mine.
Yeah.
But they also come at you hard, right? My personal Instagram channel got attacked. It just came back yesterday. It was taken offline because one of the guys that I exposed slid into my DM and kind of taunted me. He went and hired a hacker in Turkey, created an Instagram profile using my image, my pictures, got verified. He gamed the system because verification is essentially an AI. for people who don't know. There's not a human being.
Yeah.
So he got verified. He reported me as impersonating his account. And this is where it gets really interesting. Somebody inside Meta flagged and did an auto appeal and turned my appeal down without me doing anything, which means somebody on the inside was paid to do that. Why are you suppressing information? If you don't have anything to hide, why are you suppressing, right? The lawyer in me says First Amendment rights, for example, have a public debate about it. If you want to go on an Instagram live and talk to me about it, or talk to Ballerbusters on a live, do that. What's with the suppression? And what's interesting is he was an anecdote, this particular guy. And so I'm happy I got my account back after 2 weeks. People were like, where's your account? Are you blocking me? And I got a bunch of texts. Ballerbuster got a bunch of DMs. No, but that's what happened. Well, my point is that's what they do. And only clowns do that. That's how I feel.
Wes has done a lot of stuff. In your opinion, what's the worst?
I mean, if you put your hands on a woman against her will and beat her up, you're a sick human being. We can talk about, hey, I didn't deliver a meal plan or you weren't satisfied with it. We can talk about all that.
Yeah.
But you beat up a woman. There's many ways to get away from a female that maybe is coming at you, okay? Maybe there's a fair argument that one of his exes was attacking him, scratched him, and he was trying to get away. We can learn a little bit from Johnny Depp about how he tried to get away even after his finger was severed. We can get into that. The point is, you and I both know, anyone who's ever been in a relationship or who's ever been in an altercation knows when things get hot, how do you walk away and how do you leave? If you are beating up your ex, your wife, your girlfriend, whoever, you're scum of the earth. That's all to me, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Because abusing somebody financially is a refund and an apology, and I won't do it again. That deserves criminal prosecution to the heaviest and public shaming, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about, culprit number 2, Andy Elliott. Recently, do you think that was the worst, what happened yesterday? Like, do you think that was the sort of pinnacle of his insanity?
No.
Do you think there's other stuff that's...
I don't think we've seen it yet.
Okay. Wow. So talk to me about what happened yesterday with Andy Elliott.
Well, there's an audio recording, something that we would all call receipts, of him making statements using the N-word. I mean, his analogy is, do you want to work for somebody or do you want to be an effing N-word for the rest of your life? Like, do you want to work for somebody and be that, or do you want to do something on your own? And it's a recording that has been verified, meaning whoever produced that recording, we know that person. This is not something that's posted on Twitter. It's some ghost account. That was given to say, this guy, and let me take a step back. What's interesting is with victim advocacy, when you see somebody out there saying something hypocritical or putting on a persona and you know something about that person, it's like, man, I wish people knew what the reality was. It's probably happened to you before. We're like, this burns me because I've had an experience and it is not this experience. What do you feel like doing? You feel like talking about it, telling someone. It's therapeutic to you. So this is one example of that. Like, well, according to this person, this guy comes off as this, using God in every opportunity and projecting himself. And this is actually what's happening under the table. And I'm one of those persons from under the table, and here's the receipt, right? This is what we're hearing.
Yeah.
It's not just this recording. So what happened was somebody gave this recording, which directly contradicts what Andy Elliott has said previously. And so he clearly saw the video and recorded a little
rebuttal.
Yeah, rebuttal. It's a soundbite, basically saying a very easy one, right? It's a very easy one to buy into. Hey, if you have haters, you've made it. That's your trophy of success. And he didn't address. Oh, that's an AI. That's not real. Well, you're going to find out. You're going to find out.
I mean, how else do you try to cover that up? That's probably in 2024 the way, right?
Right.
Like this was sound engineered using AI. This was not me. Now, what was the response from your community after he said that? You have anybody come forward?
Well, certainly we know people who have firsthand knowledge, who have dealt with him, who don't believe a word of what he's saying and know that he's projecting himself to be somebody he's not.
Yeah.
That's kind of a teaser. I mean, there's more to come that will come out. And like I always say, it's the victim story to tell. But look, there are many people who are disgruntled from Andy because they don't like Andy for what he does, because they believe it's sinister to project an image, make money off of it as a sales guru trainer, when there's a real story that needs to be told about. Actually, no, this is what the backstory is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you another example of something as a lawyer I didn't like. Andy Elliott's, the cover of his book, I forgot the name of it, where he's pointing like this.
Yeah.
That picture was taken by a photographer at one of his events. And that photographer, by law, owns the copyright and all legal rights to that image. Andy took it from the photographer's Instagram page without asking. Okay? Now, you could say, well, maybe he was this marketing person. Maybe he didn't know. Actually, the photographer who I've spoken with said, here's a receipt where I'm actually saying, Andy, here's a DM. Like, this is my photo. You should do the right thing and pay me for it, or at least give me credit. Instead, he denied him. He blocked him. He literally blocked him so he couldn't communicate. And Andy's people basically said, go pound sand. Now, if you're such an honest and ethical guy, is that how you would treat somebody whose photograph you used for the cover of your book?
Mm.
If you make all this money, why don't you write him a check for $1,000? He's not asking for $1 million.
Yeah.
This is what this guy does for a living. Or maybe it's a side hustle. He takes photos. Pay the guy. That's what you're supposed to do.
Mm.
If you're an honorable human being, pay the guy. Oh, no. He didn't just not pay him, but he literally went after the guy and threatened him. Like, that's trashy. If I was him, I would sue. I 100% would sue. And I would get damages for that. And I would say, you made all this money on your book. Pay me a reasonable royalty since you didn't want to do it the correct way.
Mm. Would you take that case?
I would totally take that case.
Have you talked to him about it?
I have totally talked to him about it.
And he's just doesn't want to go down that track?
No, I don't want to say, because privileged,
Okay.
but potentially privileged.
Yeah.
He's not my client right now.
Yeah.
But I would take the case. No problem.
Yeah.
And there may be a case.
Yeah.
But that's just an example, right? So when you talk ethics in business means something. You've been a business owner. That means it's not just waving how much money you make or flaunting a Lamborghini or flaunting how much you spent in your master bathroom. That's gritty to me.
Mm.
You're not going to see pictures of my master bathroom on social media.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a renovation that somebody's asking me about. It's gritty, and you're selling a persona. And the second you sell a persona, you're opening yourself up to public criticism on why you are not that persona.
Mm-hmm. If Andy and Wes had a baby, what would
It's a good one. It's possible.
what would that look like? Physical attributes, emotional attributes, spiritual attributes.
That baby would look like Smeagle. Would be Smeagle, and the first words out of that baby's mouth would be "my precious." Literally, like the exemplary of greed, of just ethical nastiness. I don't care. I'm going to make my money. I'm going to flaunt this lifestyle, and I'm better than you. And that's what I think of. I think of Smeagle.
Would it be jacked though? Like more jacked than Smeagle? Because Smeagle's like kind of
Smeagle is certainly an anomaly from a humanoid perspective. But you know what? I personally, this is my opinion, from what I can see, it looks like Wes and Andy both take anabolics or TRT or HGH. I don't think they have natural dispositions to be thick boned. So they could have been Smeagles and built themselves that way.
Thank you to our sponsors over at Bucked Up. I love this company. I love their products, their apparel, and their supplements. Recently, they dropped the mother of all pre-workouts, Mother Bucker. This is not for the faint of heart. This will make you want to claw your face off. So don't get stuck in traffic when you're headed to the gym. I love these guys. I love this company, and I love their products. They are clearly the best tasting pre-workout on the entire market, and they're number one for a reason. Bucked Up is my favorite workout brand, hands down. And they also have my favorite apparel for working out and just for daily life. It's Lululemon-like quality, but for a fraction of the price that's affordable. So head over to their site, buckedup.com, where you can check it out. And for 20% off their entire site, use the code TylerHall20.
There's a few others, right? So some of these other folks on the list are guys that you talk about, like Grant Cardone, Chris Crone, MDK Project, Jay Shetty, Ryan Pineda. I think even Limitless Society's been in that. Who do you want to talk about next? Like, who would be worthwhile to spend time on?
I think Grant Cardone. Grant, well, I mean, do you have a direct question or anything you're wondering about him, or do you want to jump right into it?
I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I'd prefer for you to just share your thoughts.
I'll give you free form. It's kind of like this. I have no real training in health and fitness, me personally. I have no degrees, certification. I can't count my random YouTube videos that I watch to give me a credential on having substantive knowledge of health and nutrition. But I'm very studious. I'm always paying attention to published studies, independent double-blind studies on this supplement, this thing. I'm a lawyer. If I started peddling supplements, the natural question is, where do you get your basis in doing that? Are you an expert, or are you just giving an endorsement to a product and using your credibility as a lawyer? Right? It's true. You could use that footprint of analysis across anyone. What is Grant Cardone's claim to fame in real estate? Let's go back. Where does he actually get his expertise in real estate, in fund management? He manages a multi-billion-dollar fund. I forgot the number. Where does that come from? And the reason why there's crickets is because he has no financial expertise. He's not a CFA. He's not a certified financial planner. He's never operated a fund until now, until when he actually got that pool of money. His background is sales. He's a sales guy. Now, his product. What is Grant's product? Grant's product is selling the sizzle. If you've ever read his documents, you would be interested just with your financial background. If you read his limited partnership documents, and I have, maybe not the latest, but I've read older ones, you are maybe getting a 4 to 5 to 6% return when he chooses to pay it. And you're locked into a multi-year contract. You are the truest form of a limited partner. He talks about these big pops and, why would you buy a home? You should rent. You're stupid. He tells this to people. You've heard it. Why would you buy a home? Rent and give me that money. Why? Because he's selling you the idea to invest with him. Grant spends more money than any financial real estate guru, period, like eclipses numbers. He is just a popular guy. He's not the best.
Yeah.
I've done exceptionally well in my private real estate investments. Exceptionally well. 100 200% returns. I'm not looking to get rich from managing your money, taking a fee, and then keeping most of that pie.
Yeah.
That's my problem with Grant. He presents himself as, I'm a real estate expert, 10x this. You're selling a sizzle, and most of the people that invest with Grant are not sophisticated investors. It's people who have this dream. And this is what I hate about most of the scammers, like you listed, most of these people. They are preying on people who are unsophisticated, who can't fend for themselves. If you or I were sitting in a room and listening to these presentations, we would laugh.
Yeah.
Because we can smell it. Most of these people can't. That's my third problem with Grant. That's what he's selling. The money he's made is the skin off of people's back that probably shouldn't have been investing with him to begin with. There may be sophisticated investors who went in on some big deals and that popped. Maybe. It's a really hard pill to swallow. And his background, the lack of credentials, his brother ran this, I believe he was connected, maybe not publicly, but his brother ran this credit card chargeback refund machine that the FTC went after. Grant's promised returns that he's never yielded before. And again, the FTC has gone after him and has actually sent him letters, the SEC, saying you can't represent in your private placement memorandum that you've made these kind of returns because you have not. And he may have hired good lawyers to say, this is how you should spin it. That's what anybody would do. And he's dodged and he's pivoted.
You think he'll end up in jail?
I mean, Grant is sophisticated. I don't view him like how I view Wes Watson. I don't think they're in the same category.
Yeah.
I don't know that he will end up in jail. I know he's been sued. I know a lot of these lawsuits were not great lawsuits. But the end, whether you end up in jail or get sued civilly and lose, I don't think that proves whether somebody is operating with integrity or ethics.
I had a guy on my show yesterday. This guy named Jason Wojo. Have you seen him?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
But tell me.
Jason Wojo runs a social media marketing business for paid ads predominantly. I bet you've seen his face if you were to see him. In fact, I'll show him right now. This is Jason. This guy. Right. So that's Ryan, and then this is Jason, this guy. You seen that guy?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple things about Jason. Okay. So I get sent, the podcast is doing really well. And so we get messages all the time about friends of friends, or I want to be a guest, or I want to this or that. So, an acquaintance, wouldn't call him a friend, sent me a DM and said, hey, this guy's going to be in town. You should interview him. It's really interesting. So I go to his page, and in about 15 seconds, and you ask AD, who produced the podcast, he knows this about me. I'm like, nope, no thanks. Have a good day. and the guy's like, he has 1 million followers. I'm like, whatever. What does that mean? I don't care. Right. And so it's just not the right fit at face value for the show. Push comes to shove. I say, hey, do you think this does he have a real story? Is he willing to be vulnerable? Is he willing to open up? Is he willing to have a real conversation, or is it going to be this bullshit? Right? No, he will. Anyways, he comes on the show, and I really like the guy. Like, face value, what you see online is never really who people's true identity is, right? So that was a good lesson for me, is I can't always judge a book by its cover. The nature of his business is he supports, okay? Most of that list that you guys talk about, they are his clients. He does paid social media advertising, his agency, for those clients. And he coaches, like, one-on-one, he works with these guys very closely. And so I asked the question, I said, well, dude, a lot of what these guys sell, I think, is fraudulent. Like, I just don't think it's real. Like, there's no real value to these programs. his pushback was, I actually think it's that for the most part, the people who buy these courses at the end of the day don't do the work. So the material is solid, the coaching is solid, the frameworks are there to be successful in whatever the discipline is that you're being sold or coached on, but I don't think the people do the work. What are your thoughts on that?
I immediately, first of all, that could be possible that you buy a program or coaching or anything and you don't put in the work yourself, right? It's like you can buy a meal plan and you can eat Doritos all day and ice cream and look like shit and not hit the gym and have a proper trainer. My problem is, take the Wes Watson example. You don't deliver at all.
Yeah.
What's the excuse there?
Actually, I think Jason called Wes out, right? That was the only guy that Jason's like,
Is
yeah,
that right?
that guy's a fraud. He's like, but these other guys, like, you know, and some he can't mention exactly, but
Sure.
think Andy and Chris and these other guys, like, I don't think their programs that they sell, Grant, I don't think their programs are fraudulent.
You know, when you sell at scale, like these guys do,
Yeah.
where's the critical mass where people say, you know, at what point or percentage or what point do people say, you know what, it didn't work for X number of people. This many people want refunds. What does that data look like? And what's interesting is if you are in the front end, if you are selling the ads and managing the ad space, you don't know that. You don't, because you don't unless you handle the entire supply chain of from ad all the way to point of sale and revenue management, and that's never one agency.
Yeah.
You don't know what that looks like. What you know is ad copy. You know how to manage ads. You know what cost per click looks like, and you know what ROI looks like. I don't know that that's an objective measuring stick for that.
Fair.
In my practice, I get asked to review ad copy, for example, or blog copy for FTC compliance, you know, Section 5 deceptive practices of Section 5 of the FTC Act practices, whether this is deceptive. I look at it, is it defamatory if I say this about my competitor? I look at that stuff. The ads that I see, I mean, statements by Grant just a few weeks ago saying that he makes these outlandish claims. You could close your eyes and throw a dart on a random thing that Grant said, and it's likely bullshit.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. It's, again, to me, how much do you need to buy and not be successful in that? To me, the buy is a different question. Why are you saying this to people?
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying it because he has a tremendous financial incentive to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because everything he owns is off the money on the backs of those people. So I agree with you on this. When you meet somebody and you sit down with them and get a feel for them, it's different. I do agree with that. But remember what the type of personality we're dealing with. The people who are, and this is actually a really good analogy, because in my civil fraud cases where I represent the plaintiff and my client was scammed, whatever the scam was, I've sat across the table and I've deposed these scammers. And boy, they're good at putting on the gloss.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of who they are.
Yeah.
It's very cerebral to them to put on this show.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And sit there and lie to your face, and they're so good at it. That's why they're successful. If they were not good at that, they would have never gotten anywhere.
Good point.
Bernie Madoff, holy moly.
Yeah.
Sophisticated institutional money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's Uncle Bernie. That's this guy. He's a good man. I've lunch, dinner. He's gone to birthday parties, baby showers. He's changed diapers for these people. Poof, because he was a greedy animal.
Yeah.
That's scary. And as human beings, we're not the greatest at gauging who's credible and who's not. We're just not.
Would you be open to me moderating a live podcast between you and Wes or Andy?
I would love that.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I might have to bring a bulletproof vest, but
We'll have
we'll
We'll take care of it. So one of the videos that you posted was about Mark Cuban, right? And it was Mark Cuban basically leaving a word of caution to the world about these internet gurus, right? I don't even know, what do they call when they sell these programs online? What do they call these? There's a term for it in like social media land. It's like
E-commerce coaching.
Is that what I don't know. There's
agree.
Okay. But he basically said like, hey, don't fall for this trap. Like if anybody's trying to sell you a thing, like it's bullshit. Because if they were that good at that thing, they would be doing that thing to make a bunch more money than selling you the thing, right? One of the guys that I'm very perplexed by is Chris Crone. Because I think he's like among these other, he's one of the best, I think, at this, right? Which is, he says he's making 10 million plus a month. He's got several planes. He's got this 50,000 square foot home. And he shows all this stuff, right? I'm super rich. I'm super successful. But then he sells a $99 course, and he sells a $299 course, and he sells a $1,500 course, and he sells a slew of 50 different courses. And you're just going, that just doesn't make sense to me as a real business builder that builds companies. It's like, dude, if you have the sauce, why do the thing, right? Why, like, it doesn't make sense. So how do you reconcile that?
It's a tough reconciliation because there are people, if you look at the fitness industry, there are people who have won competitive pro bikini or whatever competition they've done. They're number one. They did it. They were doers. And now they have a platform and they're going to teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to teach you how to be like them, but they're also going to teach you how to be a coach as well, right? I've seen this a lot.
Fitness isn't a fair comparison though. There's just not the same amount of funds flowing through that industry as, say, real estate or tech.
That's probably
or
true.
Private,
That's probably true. I think to answer your question directly, it's easy to scale. I have a hard time trusting people who do that because they're selling a lifestyle. Their first 5 pictures on their Instagram grid is a Cullinan. It's their side chick or their main chick.
Yeah.
Why are you feeding me? It's a magnificent dinner. Why are you feeding this to me? Why isn't it your how-tos? Because you know the psychology of sales. One of the most prominent scholars in social persuasion, I took his class at ASU, Robert Cialdini. He's a scientist. Okay, he writes on likability. One of the top 5 or top 10, it's in the top 5 things you can do to sell me on something is to make you like me. Is to sell a sizzle of something that you are hungry for.
Yeah.
All of these people in all of these highly scalable, coaching or seminar courses, what are they selling? Who are they selling to? They're selling to people who want a lifestyle. Oh, I wish I could just put my feet up on the desk and not work. That's what this guy's telling me I can do, is start this Amazon business and be an Amazon millionaire. It's Amway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah.
We see it and it smells funny to us, but the people who want that lifestyle, it's a desperation for them.
Yeah.
So this goes to my point on you're scaling off of selling a lifestyle and belief that's totally bogus.
Yeah.
And maybe there is juice to your coaching program. Maybe there is some validity to it, but perhaps 99% of the people that buy it shouldn't even be marketed to.
Yeah.
As buyers. Why are you marketing to them? Subprime mortgage. Why are you sitting across the table at a bank to buy a $500,000 house when you make $36,000 a year? We saw this systemic problem, and it wasn't until banks collapsed that people said, oh, it was greed and lack of ethics and lack of transparency. Are you going to blame the gal that walked in to get a loan who's making $36,000? They're unsophisticated.
Yeah, totally. If you had the opportunity to sit down, let's just pretend that we ran this. We got Wes to come on the show, and I facilitated an interview between the two of you. What sort of questions might you pose in that discussion?
Well, what I would say is, number one, why? Why do you need to sell this hard? Why do you need to sell your lifestyle this hard? Number one. Number two, are you willing to be transparent with people on what you lease versus what you buy and where that money originates from? Ballerbusters has received plenty of content from Wes, and we've all seen it, where he's counting the 6-figure cars in his driveway. Oh, my coaching or my fitness program paid for this Cullinan and this Lambo and this SVJ. And this is the exact argument that we're talking about, is that doesn't prove you're honest. That proves you made money.
Yeah.
Are you willing to be transparent with us, Wes? Are you willing to be transparent? If we got your ex on the line and we wanted to clear the air with who beat up who, are you willing to do that?
Yep.
Because you're being portrayed as a violent, abusive man who physically beat up and assaulted this woman or women. Can we put that to bed? Look, I'm coming from the world of bad reviews, even.
Yeah.
Where it's like you talk to somebody wrong in your office and they give you a 1-star review. This guy's incompetent and da-da-da. So people can say anything. Where's the rebuttal to that?
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Go Ruck. I love this company. I use their products all the time, right? They're known for their rucksacks, their weighted ruck vests, their ruck backpacks, and they're the most high quality weighted backpack on the market. They also work well and they're comfortable, which I think is a big deal, especially if you spend a lot of time with one of these things on your back. So recently with Levels, we did this 24-hour Broken Marathon Ruck Edition where we walked 1.1 miles in the middle of the desert every hour at the top of the hour for 24 hours in a row. And these things held up like no problem, right? So these have taken a lot of abuse. These things last seemingly forever. And they're a great product. And it's different than just going out and going on a walk, loading a little bit of weight on your back. So go check them out. They're providing a discount code for all of our listeners down below. And I think you're going to really enjoy this product.
Yeah. Ryan Pineda, he's been on Ballerbusters a couple of times. I am a deeply spiritual person, and I spend a lot of my time and life now investigating certain things, like The Case for Jesus Christ, for example, is a book that I'm reading right now by Lee Strobel. Ryan has chosen in the last year to leverage his Christian and faith beliefs to his advantage. How do you feel about that?
It's difficult to watch. Now, let me footnote, and this is coming from somebody who is very spiritual, and I have very strong convictions and beliefs, but I'm not super public about it. I mean, I'm not marketing off of that. People who do that, it's almost like, tell me if you disagree with this. If I was giving a sermon and I have 1,000 people in my congregation, religious affiliation aside, priest, pastor, imam, whatever, 1,000 people sitting in front of me who really believe in what I'm saying and are begging for guidance, and I'm their connection. And I say, take your Zelle out or Cash App and send me $100 right now. Every single person, you're going to get salvation. That sounds like this to me. When you leverage faith, because you know that people are drawn. That market is drawn. Its beliefs are cerebral, and they're very, very deep. And when you connect with somebody on religious beliefs, it's a deep connection, right? You felt it. Yeah. I know it. Yeah. And then you take that and you leverage off of that. I have a problem with that. And I'm not saying in every single statement he's made doing that is fraudulent. I don't know. But I have a problem using that for commercial purposes. And by the way, MLMs were built like this.
Yeah.
Many, whether legitimate or illegitimate, were built off of started in the church or started in the mosque.
Utah's the tech or the MLM hub of the world, right?
100% right.
Yeah.
What are they leveraging? Oh, faith. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good person. He's connected to God, right? Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. When it comes to spirituality, I know that you're Muslim. I think could even say Orthodox Muslim, if that's fair, right? Like practicing. And I know that because when you came in today, you said that you were fasting for
That's
Ramadan. Why spend your time and your energy practicing these beliefs? What does that mean to you?
For me, it's about, I think every human being at the end of the day needs guidance. I think all of us need guidance, whether you are rich, successful, or you're poor and destitute. Everybody's in search of guidance. Everybody naturally, I believe, has a draw to a higher sense of being, and a deeper question of, why are we here? And what happens when I die? Like these kinds of very basic questions. And I think faith answers those questions for me. People in my office know, like, okay, Raees is fasting for 30 days. Don't bother him certain time periods of the day because I'm not in my prime at those times. But I also take depositions while fasting. I draft motions while fasting. I appear in court, argue. It's not a crutch for me. It's something I do to improve. So at the end of the day, my conviction and my practice is really for self-improvement because I want to be the best version of me. And honestly, fasting is amazing because you appreciate everything so much more. Like normally, how many people drink this much of this bottle and just leave it? They leave it in their car, leave it in their house. When I break my fast, the first sip of this water is like another universe.
Yeah.
And there are people today who can't even break their fast because they don't have the means to do so. And that's humbling, man. I mean, regardless of what religious belief or socioeconomic forum you come from, fasting humbles you.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that. It's a disconnect from worldly things for me. It's just, there's a greater picture, and I enjoy that.
I wish we had so much more time because I love this topic. The connection between faith and facts or evidence in religion, I think, is a really interesting discussion to me. And it's actually similar to the discussion we had earlier, which is like anecdotal versus, court documented evidence, right? It's like very similar. So when you think about, you're Muslim, I'm Christian. When you think about your faith, right? How much of like your belief system is based on the fact that you have a deep faith? So things that we cannot see, but that we believe versus evidence and facts and truth.
It's interesting because I think the root of faith is trust. And so, for example, in Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic fluently, but in Arabic, the word for faith is iman, and iman means trust. And even in faith, when we use it in the English lexicon, we mean trust. Don't you have faith in me?
Yeah.
People say that.
Yeah,
don't you trust me?
Yeah.
And in the absence of facts, documents, tangible evidence, we rely on faith and your conviction to that. And so even in the absence of things such as evidence, we fill that with trust. And it's actually a tremendous loop to what we were just talking about today, is when there's an absence of, hey, I don't know, but Andy Elliott says it, so it must be true. Or I don't know, but I feel like I should trust Grant Cardone because look, he's got all these cars, he's driving around his Cullinan, he's 10X. I don't know, but Wes Watson has all these cars paid for, so he's got to be. It's leeching off of that trust. And faith requires belief in the absence of documentation and evidence. That's the essence of faith. I think in all Abrahamic faiths, especially, there's a tradition of storytelling of, hey, this is what we know. And that helps fill a void of that. I think on the flip side, e-commerce and business, that story needs to be told. The backstory of who these people are. Like, if you want to know who Jesus is, you got to understand how he lived. You don't just read one verse and say, I know who he is.
Yeah. Look
at how he lived. Don't just look at his miracles and say, I believe. listen to his message, understand humility and how he loved people. What did he say and what did he do? We're not doing that in business. We're looking at cover stories or what kind of car they drive, what kind of watch they're wearing. It's very shallow. And I think that's what I appreciate about belief and faith is it's deep, it's visceral, it's well beyond just a cover story.
I want to end on this. My understanding is that you grew up in Connecticut, okay, which for simplification reasoning is especially at that time, was a very sort of white dominated area, right? You grew up Muslim as well, brown guy, Connecticut, K through 10. And I'm assuming that was hard, right? How did that experience as a child growing up Muslim with different color skin in that area really shape your identity of who you've become today?
When I moved here, I was like, oh my God, there's Mexicans here. This is great. I can blend in. And I moved to Gilbert, which is not exactly the most diverse demographic. I mean, literally, it was just an escape moving to Arizona. Listen, kids are mean. I mean, when you're at that age, you say and do all kinds of things. And you're not an adult, of course. So you write off a lot of it. But you are literally a black sheep. And people fear what they don't know. And they don't want to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And man, those were difficult years. And so much of that time is your brain is molding who it thinks, your identity. And so it was very traumatic, getting picked on and made fun of and outcast. It wasn't until like 9th grade when I started playing guitar and started doing cool things. And then it happened to coincide with moving that I got a new identity opportunity where people saw me for who I was. They could say, dude, Raees is a cool guy. Like he can run a mean Metallica solo, or he's a really good artist. Like who is this guy? Because the population was bigger here. It's easier there's more diversity. I mean, truly, than Bethel, Connecticut, which 800 kids in the entire high school. And there's deep embedded racism. There's deep embedded classism. Most of Wall Street doesn't live in Wall Street. They live in Connecticut. They live in Greenwich, Connecticut, Fairfield County, where I'm from. The elitism is out of control. It's top down. So it's not just ignorant kids. It's parents and grandparents, and it's coming down this way.
Yeah.
But I think it's made me who I am today because it's shown me that you can work hard, be honest, do everything you can, and prove them wrong, and show people just by doing it right. And that keeps me going. That's If I was on the streets driving in Connecticut, I would do burnouts in a really expensive car just to say, hey, remember me?
Yeah. I love it. What's your final word of caution for the millions of people today that are searching for answers, and they're searching on social media for these answers? Where do I get my next dollar? How am I going to build my next business? What do I do with my life? And they turn to social media to some of these folks. What's your word of caution to these people?
My word of caution is number one, why are you turning to the person you're turning to, whoever it is? It's the same reason people get drawn to cultic behavior in cults when they're looking for legitimate spirituality is somebody did a miracle. Okay, talk to that person. Talk to other people who have worked with them. Don't be surface level. Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Dig deeper. Don't be desperate. People are desperate for, I want to get 1 million social media followers. Why? Like, don't be desperate.
Yeah.
And 3, if it sounds too good to be true, the old adage, it's probably not true. Investigate it. Most people, we are a 30-second attention span society now, if that. We're making business decisions in 30 seconds. You get an ad from one of these guys, you click, you buy, you sign up, and you feel now like you're a millionaire because you bought this program. So I would say people need to slow down. Business and building brands. I got to shout out Andy Frisella, if you know Andy and First Form. This guy, he doesn't do that. He's one of the most successful e-com guys, period. He's a hustler. He's been doing it for many years. People like that, he's not selling a coaching course, but maybe he'll talk to you. So just be suspect of everything.
Yeah.
And Don't just read the ad, click and buy. So do the opposite of what you're doing.
Amazing. Raees, it was a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining the roller coaster.
This is great. Thanks for having me.
You got it.